Across Chicago and communities throughout Illinois, the impact of climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's a community issue. From rising temperatures to uneven access to green space, the effects are often felt most in neighborhoods that have historically had the least investment. But there are also opportunities to build healthier communities, expand economic pathways, and create solutions that are rooted in both environmental stewardship and equity. Our next guest is working at the intersection of all three. Reverend Nicolette Faison is the Illinois Outreach Director for Faith in Place, a nonprofit that partners with communities of faith to advance environmental justice and sustainable practices. Reverend Faison, welcome to the Newsroom, and thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Why don't we start with helping our audience understand the need? So for viewers who may not immediately connect tree coverage to quality of life, why does expanding the tree canopy matter, especially in neighborhoods that have historically had less access to green space?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, because tree canopy actually makes a world of a difference.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't really realize this, but off bat, tree canopy actually increases the value of your home. It also has this very interesting tie to people would consider safe communities.
Okay.
I, however, kind of see safe communities more as the fact that tree canopy offers 2 to 9 degrees more cooler than when you have a street that does not have it, for example.
Okay.
So communities that don't really have a lot of tree canopy typically could be up to 45 degrees hotter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Understood. So we often hear the term environmental justice.
Yes.
How does the tree canopy and workforce community grant specifically address disparities between neighborhoods that have abundant green space and those that don't?
Well, I feel like with Chicago, we all know that not every neighborhood is built the same.
That's right.
It is an incredible thing to witness how much of a disparity there is amongst neighborhoods. And a lot of that actually is tied into our environment. So not a lot of people realize this, but if you look at a map of where our food deserts are in the city of Chicago, you can lay a map of where tree canopy lacks on top of it, and it'll be virtually the same thing.
Wow.
The reality is that environmental justice and the way that we're trying to address this in the community is to make sure that we have green space, and not just grass, right? But tree coverage. It helps for people to want to go outside. I think what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to environmental racism is who actually gets to be outside, you know?
That's right.
And so in a lot of our communities, folks don't frequent out there. They need to get on reliable public transportation, but who wants to wait for your bus or your train when it is completely hot and just overwhelming you?
That's right.
I feel like it was 30, 40 years ago where we had one of the worst heat waves in the city of Chicago. We had about 95 people dying.
1995, actually.
Right? And so let's think about that. What does that mean, and who are those people most affected? Oftentimes, those are from these same exact communities we're talking about. And so tree canopy and making sure we have that is a response to the inhumane treatments that people experience.
Yeah.
And I think if we're also going to be real about it too, our youth should be able to experience all seasons. We don't think about how trees play a role in that and being able to see the lifespan of things. Why should that only be limited to certain kids?
That's right.
You know?
Wow, this is really incredible work. I don't think people really understand what tree canopies are and how important they are to our communities, especially communities that are experiencing other aspects of injustice and disinvestment. Wow. So there are workforce opportunities when it comes to tree canopies as well. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, I would love to.
So this isn't just about planting trees, right? It's also about creating jobs. What kinds of workforce opportunities are tied to this grant, and who are you hoping will benefit from them?
So I think that the workforce opportunities is a little bit more out of the box than what people would think of.
Okay.
Because the thing is that a lot of people don't realize that they have a love of trees and planting until they actually get an opportunity to do it. And so as we just talked about before, in terms of environmental racism or injustice, right? Not having that exposure kind of limits your thoughts of who you can be when you grow up. This grant, however, we're looking at a 3-year span. We want to see actual retention with our trees. So we're not just looking to make sure you plant 100 trees. How do we keep 100 trees?
Sure.
You know? And so what that looks like for us in terms of how we are doing our grant is that this is all about maintenance. And so maintenance looks like pruning trees, watering trees. Did you know it takes 10 gallons a week for one tree?
Wow, no, I didn't know that.
Right? And so someone has to do that work. This creates a little bit of a buffer, or I should say funding rather, for us to hire local.
Okay.
So I get the opportunity to meet a lot of landscapers and be able to hand their information off to other people in similar communities and be like, hey, they're actually already doing this kind of work. This is great. So we're helping with that local economy, a lot of independent folks. We also have folks that are getting training and certifications, becoming master arborists or master gardeners. And so that also creates opportunities for them to do this work even further.
Sure.
And then let's get into the youth, right? We have an intergenerational program here. You have people that are pulling upon young folks to do the watering, to help with the digging. And so now we're also exposing young people to opportunities they probably didn't consider before, or they saw one way or the other. And so this kind of creates opportunities for them to get involved, for them to get a little bit of pay, and to kind of reconsider the opportunities that are out there for them.
That's right. Wow. I even recently saw a video or something posted talking about just trees and embracing trees and being at one with trees, and how that also helps with mental health stability and regulating various emotions and things like that. So that's probably an unintended consequence of doing this type of work. Would you say?
Absolutely. The thing that people do not realize how much we need trees.
Sure.
You know, that's a huge part of like Faith in Place, of just understanding that we see climate crisis as a spiritual crisis.
Okay.
And it's a separation from ourselves, from our communities and our environments. And so we don't think about going outside and hugging trees.
Right.
Now, I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
Trees, yes, they exist, but the idea of just frolicking in a garden never really comes to mind, right? And so the idea that you kind of feel a different kind of connectedness, you start to notice things a little bit more, and you're breathing fresh air.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize this either when it comes to trees, is that trees play a huge part in kind of mitigating our pollution.
Absolutely.
Right.
They soak up the debris from the air. Wow, that's incredible. So Faith in Place, you just mentioned that. Faith in Place works closely with faith-based organizations as well as community organizations. How are local residents and institutions being engaged in this effort, and why is that piece so important to the success of the program?
Community is important to the program.
Okay.
Just flat out.
Yeah.
This is for community. This is for the people that we care and love. This is for future generations. Investing in trees is investing in your future, right?
Yeah.
We need everyone to be involved in this kind of work. Let me tell you about Rainbow Beach.
Okay.
So one of our grantees, because this is our second round, so one of our grantees last cycle was the Rainbow Beach Pack. And for them, they kind of saw Rainbow Beach as this place that has been forgotten, given up upon. There's a lot of stereotypes and associations made back in the 90s, 2000s, so people did not frequent there.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna be real, that also meant that the Chicago Park District wasn't necessarily investing in that area either.
Right.
And so their thought behind this is, if we plant more trees, people will come. We believe that trees will create community. So this is not a faith-based organization. This is a group of community members of all different ages that truly love Rainbow Beach. They love South Shore, and they want to see people return to the land.
Sure.
And so how do we best get people back onto our beaches, starting to utilize public space? And that's what we need, and that's what we want to see. We want people to feel invested in the place that they live in and cherish it.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I even noticed last summer that there was this vibrancy around Rainbow Beach, and I just assumed that it was the Park District making some investments, and that was what was bringing people back. Never had a clue that this was also faith in action, community in action, really. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the long-term impact. Because as you said, this is about investing in our future. So planting trees is one thing, maintaining them and ensuring long-term impact is another. So talk a little bit more about how the program thinks about sustainability over time, both environmentally and economically.
As I mentioned, this is a 3-year grant. And so we're really thinking about the long haul here.
Okay.
The idea with tree retention is that within the first year, you're not going to see too much happen, right? It's kind of, it's still kind of getting its feels a little bit. But year 2, year 3, you start to see that kind of change occur. And so the thing with trees is that they're not going to really hit maturity until several years later on.
Right.
But if we start seeing these trees as landmarks, if we start seeing these trees as like, oh yeah, you just make a left at the corner of, you know, the oak tree, right?
Right.
You know, it starts feeling like it's better, more or less part of community.
Sure.
And the thing about trees and what we're doing here is that for every dollar invested, we get about $1.89 back.
Okay.
This actually contributes to about $1.6 million across the United States, our work with trees. So
Wow.
tree and workforce development are very much deeply tied, and we're hoping to see a little bit of that happen here in the Chicagoland area.
That's fantastic. Well, Reverend Faison, I love the program. Thank you so much for coming on today to just talk to us a little bit more about it and help our viewers understand not just what the benefits of the grant will be, but really what the benefits are of having trees in our communities and tree canopies and how they can begin to mitigate some of the injustices that we've seen in some of our communities over time.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
On the other side of the break, Chicago Latino Theater Alliance's Jorge Valdivia joins Dee to talk about the upcoming Chicago Latine Playwright Festival. Stay with us.